3, 4.
We just live right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented to you by us, the staff here at Brew Hoop. I'm Kyle Carr. I am back. I appreciate Jack and Jackson and Van and everyone filling in for me while I've been moving, more or less has been the reason why I've not been able to make it. But we have another edition of our season preview series. So first, I'm going to have one of the hosts just kind of give a quick overview of themselves. So Van, how's it going?
Things are all right. It's really warm here now. I mean, in our part of the country, it's nice to get another last gasp of summer. But my AC is broken in my car, so I'm just having to, like drive under the cover of darkness right now most of the time. But otherwise, I'm doing well. I'm excited. The season's starting. We had media day this week, and it's going to be great to see the actual Bucks like on the floor in just about 3 days. And the Brewers are starting the playoffs tomorrow. Hopefully I'm going to be able to catch a game at Wrigley. So yeah, things are all right.
Good. I was going to say, losing AC sounds absolutely awful. It is warm in not the fun way. I feel like it's now like the sun is just hot in the afternoon. Like whenever I go to pick up the kids or walk my dog, I'm like, when did it feels like it's summer, which is both good and bad.
It's the sun that's getting this heat right now. Yep.
It really is. But more importantly, we have a special guest for this episode. Thankfully, it's a returning guest. Last year, she was able to join us and give a season preview. And now she has decided, let's go for round 2. Obviously, if you watch any Bucks games, you've heard her voice. You love her voice. It is Lisa Byington. Lisa, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm curious about your comment about, thankfully it's a returning guest. What's your return rate? Is the percentage not very high?
It's been 100% this year. It's been great.
Good. Good.
And we've added some new voices too, who I hope will also return. But yeah, I think great. Everyone we asked back last year, like who was in, and they came back. So
good. Well, I am happy to come back and always happy to talk Bucks. Really excited for the season.
Yeah, we appreciate you jumping on. And I guess just to kind of start, how has your offseason been and how has it been gearing up for the upcoming season?
It's always exciting at this time of year. We obviously Van had mentioned media day, and that's always exciting to see kind of new faces with the old faces on the roster and listen to how they're excited to be, all 30 teams, right, are 0-0. So everyone has championship dreams and aspirations at this point. The weekend before, we've had our Milwaukee Bucks Foundation golf outing. And so some former players show up to that. Some current players show up to that. There were there was like a town hall thing that we had outdoors the Sunday before our media day. And had a chance to talk to Miles Turner and Doc Rivers and John Horst and Cole Anthony. But for me, that was really, really fun because we had the fan engagement and we had fans able to ask all of these people questions. And so all of those events, from the golf outing to the town hall to media day, has kind of made me really excited to get things going here for the season. And, the off season is just filled with family time. I'm a mother now, so I have an almost 10-month-old baby daughter. And
congrats. That's great.
Thank you. And so we had adopted actually last December. So it was during the season of last year. And so I got to be mom for a little bit in the off season, which is awesome. And then I worked the WNBA schedule. So I've done that since 2013 and just have loved to always work in the league. It's a great summer broadcasting job to have. And it's awesome just to see the interest and obviously the increased eyeballs and everything increasing in that league too. So that it was a good mix, guys, of work and play for this summer.
Yeah, I was gonna say having a kid is always fun, and I feel like at that age it's like the sweet spot because like you start seeing their personality, they start being able to respond and smile. So I always loved that age. And then they start crawling and walking. You're like, oh boy, I'm I was not prepared for
and she has
It's all
started,
downhill.
and she actually has started doing that. So it's Kyle, it's like you can't leave her alone, right? And like, where are you going now? That's my question I ask like 40 times in a day. But yeah, I don't know what your kids did, but she became a really good sleeper after month 4, slept through the night, and let me tell you, that was a game changer.
Yeah, the oldest one was a great sleeper until he turned 2, and the younger one was a terrible sleeper until he turned 1. So I was like, I got 2 different extremes, but now they're okay. They're okay enough.
Right. And Van, you have a lot to look forward to.
I mean, I don't know. Like, is this something I want? That's something I've just only been asking myself for the last 10 years. So
Right.
I'm getting mixed signals from you two right now, though.
I swear. I mean, you've heard both the good and bad from me, and
I have.
And you've seen both of my kids
Yes.
at random points on calls. So.
Yes, that's true.
But,
I gotta meet them sometime for real. You need to bring them down to the terrace the next time we're there.
I'll try. We just got to coordinate a weekend that you're actually in town the same weekend I have.
And I don't ever know when that's happening. But anyway, we
That's
digress.
fair.
Or we digest, as they say in Australia. Apparently, that's what Jack Traherne says. Our one of our 2. Lisa, we have a bureau of Brew Hoop in Adelaide, Australia now. We have
I did not know that.
2 writers who are based in Adelaide, Australia, who are big Bucks fans.
So you got a big international flavor.
I joke we have an Adelaide bureau. We actually also have a writer who joined us this year who lives in Poland. So yes, it is becoming very international here.
I love it. When I see international Bucks fans pop up on social media, I've made a few friends with some of them, and I just love it because it truly is. The NBA wanted to become an international league and a worldwide league, and it truly is. Obviously, Giannis, clearly helps with that factor as well. But I love it, and we appreciate the fact that League Pass can stretch out to Poland and to England and to Australia and and all those different countries, so they can watch their Bucks.
Yeah, but let me tell you, it makes scheduling meetings difficult. Like, we're having a meeting on Saturday morning, tomorrow morning. We'll probably be done around this time because that's, for our writer in Poland, that's like mid-afternoon for him. No problem. For us, it's like about 8:39 in the morning.
Too early for me.
I know it's early for me too, especially on a Saturday. But then in Australia, I think it's about 11 at night. Same day though, so
yeah, this was way easier to schedule. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah. Somehow we got this scheduled.
All right, we can get going on the Milwaukee Bucks and the upcoming season. So the first question that we always ask is just to figure out, Lisa, in your opinion, what do you think is going to be the starting lineup on night 1, assuming there are no injuries? And then what would be your closing lineup when it comes to the playoffs?
Yeah, I actually I love this question. It's unique-ish. I love, actually, I had more fun thinking about like the closing lineup than I did the starting lineup. But starters, I just don't. Giannis and Miles to me are the ones that are the shoe-ins, and then I think you can get some flexibility with your 1, 2, and 3. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of develops here throughout the year. But I think for the season, my best guess would be Giannis and Miles at the 4 and the 5. I'm still going to put Kyle Kuzma at the 3, Gary Trent Jr. at the 2, and then Kevin Porter Jr. Doc has already said that he's going to be the starting point guard. So KPJ and Gary Trent Jr. and Kuz and Miles Turner and Giannis, I think, are my starting 5 to start the season.
Sure.
And then to close, you want dogs, right? And you want two-way capability. And it's like, to close, it's like, are we closing with a lead? Are we closing to try to play catch up? So that could affect things, right? But I went into it with a mindset of the Bucks have the lead and they want to shut teams down. Okay. They don't want to turn the ball over and they want to shut teams down. So I went with Giannis and BP, Bobby Portis and Miles Turner, KPJ and Gary Trent Jr. So I looked at all of those guys. Yeah. BP to me is a dog, right? And I actually can't wait to see him paired up and going big at some points with Giannis and Miles. I think that's going to be fascinating to watch. But when you're talking about closing down a game, like I said, you want the dogs, you want the closers, you want people that are going to get the job done defensively first. That's what I think of. And so this group, I think, can do that. And so that's why I had like I said, my mentality was, okay, we're playing with the lead. We got to protect the lead. How are we going to do that? And that's the 5 that I would go with in that kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think in this situation, I'm thinking about like protecting a lead or a close game where, it's winning time. Right. And it's sort of like, it's the baseball playoff mode right now a little bit. Like it's your closing pitcher. Like it's the guy who's coming in to hold onto a lead of maybe it's even only a run, like a save situation. But one thing I'm wondering about when we're talking about everyone's closing lineups is like it's matchup based, right? And there are a lot of teams, okay, obviously you want Giannis out there, and there are a lot of teams you'll maybe want to go bigger with, like for example New York, because they're going to have Towns in there, or Cleveland like is going to have Mobley and potentially Allen in there. And the question for me then is like, in these situations, like if you're not using Giannis as the quote unquote 5, against what teams do you want Portis out there? What teams do you want Turner out there? What teams do you want both out there? Like like potential playoff opponents. I mentioned a couple of them, the kind of the top of the conference, but what about teams like, Detroit and Orlando and Atlanta? Like who do you go with? That's something I'm thinking about a lot, because I think it might change matchup dependent, but I don't know. I mean, which ones would you think you would want both of Turner and Portis out there against?
Like all 3, like going big is what you're saying?
Yeah, big,
basically.
Big.
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned it right there. Cleveland, maybe Orlando,
they're big, yeah.
But yeah, Cleveland's big and New York is big. But I think you also just have to look at it. It's so hypothetical right now because we're just talking about that, like hypotheticals, and the game's not going on. And sometimes there's a flow, there's a defensive flow. We have seen Doc go a little bit more zone, since he's taken over as well. So let's just not, narrow our focus to like, those 3 guys, Bobby, Miles, and Giannis, who they're going to D up defensively, right? Like they could, show signs of zone a few times and flashes of zone a few times as well. I think the thing that I like about those 3 guys is I think all those 3 of those guys could be versatile too. Certainly offensively, they can play inside and out. And defensively, I think it gives you some ideas of switching as well, between those 3 guys. And here's the deal too, is that I like the experience that they all have. Like Bobby and Giannis have won a championship. Miles, got to the NBA finals. He's now in year 11, right? As an NBA player. That's part of it. When you're closing a game, you're not just talking about matchups, but you're talking about decision making. And who better to have than 3 guys who have over a decade of experience in the league. So I'm kind of factoring that in as well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I feel like it is very interchangeable. Like if Doc really wanted to, he could just have, both Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green if you need just a bucket just to close things out, or, you're up by 1, you need a basket, and you have guys that can score with Bobby Portis, Giannis, Miles Turner. And as long as Giannis can still then handle the ball and kind of facilitate everything. Mm-hmm. But then, as you mentioned, the zone, and then it kind of thought like, okay, maybe that is where like a Taurean Prince or a Kyle Kuzma or, both Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. just to be at the top of that zone. So it is interesting because I feel like other than Giannis and Miles Turner, the rest of the spots are very interchangeable. And that's one of the nice benefits, though, for this year for the Bucks. I think.
Right. Like I said, with those 3 guys, there's definitely switching, possibilities. And you could go either way, Van. Like if you go big with my lineup, but you could also go small, and teams could take advantage of that, right? If you're playing, 3 guards and a Miles and a Giannis, you could take advantage of that size mismatch as well. So is there a speed mismatch you can take advantage of, or a size mismatch? For me, just again, hypothetically speaking, because we're not talking about an actual game here, I just would side with experience and switchability and IQ, and who do I trust? It all comes down to that with the closing. Who do you trust in different situations? And I would trust all 5 of those guys.
The triumvirate, as your partner Marcus has already started calling it, of AJ Green and Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent Jr. That's, I think, been the apple of a lot of fans' eyes this offseason, because we saw what it did at the end of last year, and also in the playoffs. Like, that was the starting, I guess, 1 through 3 of Game 5 against Indiana, and a lot of people would like that. To see that as the starting lineup from the jump this year. But I've been looking around a lot just at, like lineup data, because that was such a small sample size with those 3 guys. And it was mostly in closing situations last year, and it did really well. But we're talking just, under 100 possessions, right? And yeah, I wonder if it's something maybe because of that. It's like, you don't want to overexpose it, and you want to have it be a small dose kind of thing, where it's like, all right, we use this more situationally. And of course, playoff series with especially a team like Indiana last year, like that's they say a playoff series is just a bunch of small sample sizes, and like you need to kind of be quickly adaptive. So yeah, maybe we don't see that right away, but like you were saying, we see it in late game situations as needed, because yeah, it's intriguing, right? A lot of people are intrigued by the triumvirate. That's going to be Marcus called it that on our pod when he did it a couple months ago now, and I'm just waiting to hear it on the air.
Yeah. Oh no,
they will
definitely make it on the air. Yeah.
He's said it right
after.
A lot.
It'll be right after discombobulated. So he makes sure to get a discombobulation or a discombobulated in our broadcast at least once. So
yeah.
But there's actually a personal story for that I'll let him tell you at another time. But yeah, triumvirate. Yeah, that's definitely gonna hit it. I would guess at least once for the first month.
I'll be waiting for it. I'll be waiting for it. I'm gonna keep. I'll keep a little tally,
and then decide at the last second, like, okay, put that in the recap. Put that in the recap. Marcus said it.
Yeah. It's a thing now. It's a thing.
Right.
But
and I did an event. I'll say this: I did an event. I talked about all those, kind of preseason, get ready for the season events. I did one with Bobby where I sat down with him, small group of partnership members, and for 30 minutes, and he even brought that up. Like his, you could tell that he lit up talking about the possibility, and he even said he like posed the question to the group. He said, think of like a front court or three guys at the 3, 4, and 5, if we want to label numbers to positions still, that is going to be, better than that. So he already is putting the triumvirate, if you will,
That's the big triumvirate.
At the top of the league. So he's got big expectations.
I've talked about it this year. I think it's the best front court. I mean, it's one of the best 2 or 3 front courts in the league. I mean, up there with Denver's and OKC's, certainly, like, because you have the star power. But I think the Bucks front court is just so deep now, where, in years past, maybe there wasn't really a true third center on the roster. Now it's Jericho Sims. And you have already 3 guys who play the center position credibly. Like, one is, like a long-term center in Miles Turner. And then guys who could switch over, 2 guys. And then you have to, as someone who plays the 4, you have to think about Kyle Kuzma in there too. So yeah, I think for pound, like top to bottom, might be the best front court in the league, just like in terms of, the depth they have from like 3 spots, like at least the 4 and the 5, like you go 3 lines down the depth chart, you just think about the kind of talent they have there. It's great. It's really nice.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and that's one of the strengths. I know we'll get into that a little bit later, but for me, it's the depth at each position. And Doc has even talked about that. Like, these guys are going into practice and they're looking at their position. They're like, wait, I see I see two other guys at my position who are, more than capable. And so, yeah, having a third center backup is something that has not been a luxury for the Bucks in the past. So that's just one position. Point guard's another position. When you talk about these starting lineups, I mean, you're leaving out guys like an AJ Green, who I think you can make an argument to be a starter this year. Bobby Portis, certainly, so those are two guys right there that are certainly going to be coming off the bench, I would expect here this season, but certainly I think have, and they've proven it, have starter capability.
Yeah, and I was going to say, with the front court, I know we've kind of been very much hyping it up and feeling very confident on it, and I think a lot of it revolves around Miles Turner. So I think one of the things I'm curious about, especially with Giannis and Bobby, if they both play with him or if individually, is what is that playing style going to be like with Miles Turner? Because we know we've seen him plenty of times with his time in Indiana. He can, do a pick and pop. He could do post-ups if he needed to. He's a defensive force. So I wonder, Lisa, in your opinion, how will they kind of make sure that he can fit in with Giannis, with Bobby, or even with the guards when it comes to the pick and roll side of things?
Yeah, offensively. So, I mean, even just like you look at Miles Turner, who's almost 10 years younger than Brooke Lopez, and yet their numbers, just if you look at last season's numbers alone, I'm not saying they're the same player, they're the same kind of guy, but numbers wise, it was very comparable, right? In terms of scoring and rebounding and blocks per game and 3-pointers and made and 3-point field goal percentage. I mean, all of that, it's really startling to me to look at the numbers side by side and make that comparison. And so you get a Miles Turner who's younger, who's faster. I'm one of the biggest Brooke Lopez fans, but he was exposed several times, getting older and not moving as quickly. And so I think that at that position, they needed to make a change in that way. They wanted to get younger and they wanted to get faster, and they do that with Miles Turner. Kyle, you had talked about the way the Pacers play. I mean, the top 5 in fast break points, top 3 in points off turnovers. So offensively, I think it would just be natural for the Bucks in those categories to see even that number skyrocket, right? And shoot up the league standings. And not just because of Miles Turner, but, I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. is just a faster, younger, different kind of style of play point guard than Damian Lillard, right? And so you just take those two positions and you've got two guys who want to get up and down, right? We know, and Doc had even said at the town hall that I was hosting that they're going to play more full court. And so that's going to defensively be a major change for the Bucks here this year. They're going to force more turnovers. And so I would like to talk about points off turnovers. That category, like offensively and defensively, that category is going to go up. I would continue to like to see the Bucks, sort of disallow points in the paint. They were good in that category last year. The Pacers is a different group, but if we're talking about Miles Turner, I'd just like to see what the Pacers did. The Pacers weren't great at defending points in the paint. And they also weren't a great rebounding team. So even just with the addition, I'm not saying that one guy changes everything, but I just hope that defensively that the Bucks continue to be a good rebounding team and defending the paint. I hope that still stays consistent because those were definitely strengths for the Bucks here last year. But that's the way I think that they can be affected with the addition of Miles offensively and defensively. I think it's just going to cater a lot more to the younger, faster Milwaukee Bucks that we're seeing.
Yeah, and I am curious with the rebounding just because with Brooke, it was like Brooke was able to box everyone out and let everyone else get the rebounds that were necessary. And I don't think that's going to be expected out of Miles, but it's then making me wonder, is he going to be the one trying to get the rebounds as well? Is he going to try? Is Doc going to maybe see if he can get him to do the same thing? So I am curious about the rebounding side of things. And especially if Milwaukee goes with the large, jumbo lineups, big lineups, then theoretically, they should continue to.
They should be a good rebounding team.
It should be a good rebounding team.
With the triumvirate on the floor,
With the big triumvirate, yeah. So that is one thing that's going to stick out to me is how that is going to change without Brooke Lopez, but adding Miles Turner and just seeing if it's going to be more of everyone's just going to go for the rebounds, or if it's going to kind of be that collective one person takes care of boxing people out and then everyone else has to do the work.
Right.
Yeah.
And well, I'm sorry, Van. I just want to interject real quick. And like I said, the thing that I'm really excited about is not just a Miles Turner based thing, but it's a younger, faster thing. Is what Doc had talked about is just, pressuring full court and pressuring a little bit more half court. Like, that's my style of play. Like I was smaller than a lot of the players I had to play against, and so I loved playing up tempo. So like I'm salivating at that, like to see our Milwaukee Bucks play in that fashion.
It reminds me a couple of years ago in the preseason, seeing when Adrian Griffin took over I think it was the first preseason game. Like you saw them running a lot, and I remember talking to Thanasis, who was of course back after the game. And I was like, well, what's that like? Was that a lot of fun? Like, it looked like you were having fun out there. And his face just lit. He's like, oh yeah, it was so much fun. Cause he was out there at the end of the game with, Andre Jackson Jr. This was like rookie Ajax. I think Livingston was out there. Probably AJ Green too. And, I think it was interesting to see how that was how they were playing a little bit with the young guys in the preseason. But then when it got to the regular season, they weren't really doing that because they had Chris Middleton, they had Dame, they had Brook Lopez.
They didn't
but
have
now
the horses to do it.
Now the personnel is there. We just recorded earlier this week with Jim Paschke, your predecessor, and he was talking about how, the Bucks under Mike Budenholzer were one of the most frequent transition teams, just year in and year out. In terms of the percentage of their plays, they were in transition more than most teams. Also, though, they, towards the back end of Bud's tenure, were near the top of the league in terms of offensive rebounding, too. And that's not something you see a whole lot, because you think about it, like, what you need to do to get offensive rebounds, like, you have to have people crashing the glass. Like, yeah, you need someone down low who can, box out and maybe get a bunch for themselves, but you need people to come in from the perimeter and try to grab those. That makes it difficult to get back on defense. And that's what we saw, I think, that year I'm talking about, that first year, Adrian Griffin. And since then, the Bucks haven't been in transition much, and they haven't been rebounding much at all. And that's another on the offensive glass, I should say. And that's similar to Indiana. They the Bucks and the Pacers, bottom of the league in offensive rebounding percentage this last year. But the Pacers were a fast team. They were out in transition. The Bucks were not out in transition much at all. So I think, like you're talking about, Lisa, you've got to, regardless of what you're doing on the offensive glass, you got to get out in transition more. But and a quicker team should allow that for that, because they have the horses now, which is something Jim was saying too. And those teams before were younger teams. The Bud teams were younger, but they were kind of more veteran young teams, I would say. They had they had guys who had been in the league a number of years, who just like, they weren't making those kinds of young player mistakes on either end of the ball.
Yeah. And defensive transition the last couple of years had not been a strength, right? Because and it's when even with numbers not attacking the glass for the Bucks the last couple of years, we still saw them get beat horribly on transition by opponents, because they realized that was an Achilles heel. So you would like to have the best of both worlds, a young, fast team that can crash the glass but still get back on defensive transition if they can. But very few teams have that luxury. So we'll see if this is the makeup, if this is the roster that has that kind of formula that can get it done on both sides.
I see it much more like I see the Pacers right now, who, like, again, just 29 and 30, the Bucks when the Pacers in offensive rebounding last year. But, and transition, though, just a giant gap there. But defensive rebounding, I just wanted to say, because I know, Kyle, you were a little worried about it too, like how it looks like with Turner out there. I mean, the Pacers weren't a great rebounding team. They were just about league average in terms of defensive rebound rate. But with Turner out there, the numbers are good. Their defensive rebounding rate, according to Clean the Glass, 2.2% higher last year. 2 years ago, 4.8% higher. So we're talking like this is among big men, 81st, 96th percentile. So I'm optimistic that it will look similar in terms of how they're able to grab defensive boards to when they had Brook Lopez.
Yeah, and it'll be. I am intrigued about it, and the transition is really going to be where I think the biggest change is going to happen, as you both have mentioned, just having a younger lineup, doing more full court. I'm just having flashbacks of high school practice doing full court, and I was like, this is the worst in the world because
Right.
I don't have the condition to be doing all that running. But
Well, I mean, yeah, and I said I look forward to watching it, right? But like by game 42, these players, they'll either like totally buy in or they're going to be exhausted by February.
I know that, and they've been really working on their conditioning. It sounds like this year, like from what I've been hearing out of practice, like people are they maybe getting a lot more serious about conditioning this year as compared to years past. So I guess they're going to need it, right?
True. Well, and I also think with the rotation, I think there won't be as many players that have as much minutes because, I feel like last year was like, okay, Giannis had a lot of minutes. Dame had a lot of minutes. Chris Middleton, when he was healthy, had a lot of minutes. While now it kind of feels as though there's going to be a lot more interchanging and probably guys that it's more split, like Ryan Rollins with Kevin Porter Jr., with Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green, with Kuzma, Torian Prince. We haven't even talked about guys like Gary Harris or Amir Coffey, players like that. So I feel that will help as well, where they can maybe go a little bit harder, knowing they're not going to have to be expected to play, 35, 40 minutes. So we'll see. But the crux of all this, in order for this to work, both transition and rebounding relies on Giannis Antetokounmpo. This is always a fun one because I feel like it's hard to do this, but at the same time, it's always fun to see how it ends up. But if we had to try and figure out, Lisa, what stat line Giannis is going to show by the end of this year, I feel like everyone's kind of been like, oh yeah, he's going to score 30 plus points. And everyone's like, maybe he'll get close to like triple double numbers. So in your opinion, you don't have to give exacts, but ballpark on Giannis's stats for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. First of all, can we just tip our hat to the last 2 seasons that he has? The 2 seasons of averaging over 30 points per game with an efficiency shooting rate of 60% from the field. That's never been done before Giannis, let alone back-to-back years before Giannis did it. I just don't feel like I want to get that out there in the front, in the front of the conversation, because I just don't feel like he gets the attention that he deserves on that. It is whatever you want to call it, with MVP, voter fatigue, whatever. That is something that needs to be celebrated and talked about more in the national narrative than what it has been, in my opinion.
Totally.
I got that off my chest, so I feel.
Can you believe that like Wilt Chamberlain never did that? When I heard last year that like Giannis was about to be the first one to do it, it's like you're telling me that Wilt Chamberlain or like I don't know,
Shaq, like,
or
Kareem,
any big like Kareem,
yeah, like there. If you look at the guys who were close, it was either one or the other. Like they they had averaged 30 points per game, but couldn't get to that 60% from the field, or vice versa. They were 60% from the field, but only averaging like 27 or 28 points per game. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
But just to think about his stats, he's going to have the ball in his hands, right? We know that he's going to be more of a creator and more of a playmaker. I have to think that because of that, the points per game might go down just slightly. But I don't think, Giannis is going to get his points, right? I could see him averaging anywhere between 25 and 30 points per game still this year. It's interesting. His assists, we talk about, his scoring and his efficiency from the field, but his assists the last couple of years, they've been on the dot too, like 6.5 per game. Like it's amazing. Like the last 2 years, how mirror image they are in terms of his scoring was the same and his assists per game was the same. So I think 25 to 30 points per game, I could see maybe the same efficiency. I would like him actually, and he's talked about it a little bit at Media Day. I do think he can shoot like 1 or 2 threes a game. And I would like to see at some point his game expanding out to that. I see him make 3-pointers all the time at practice and in his warm-ups and stuff. And gosh, I know that that's way different than a game situation, but I honestly think he gets in his head too much sometimes with free throws and 3-pointers. And I would love to see those percentages go up as well. His free throw percentage, and we all have talked about Giannis free throws ad nauseum, but it was way too low, right? His free throw percentage, even for Giannis, it was way too low last year. So that needs to go up. I would love to see him shoot 1 to 2 threes a game. And then his assists, that's the most interesting stat to me with Giannis here this year, is how many assists is he going to average? And I mentioned he was at like 6.5 assists per game the last couple of years. I hope that number jumps up to the 7 to 9 range. I mean, it would be, Kyle, you talked about some people talking about him averaging triple double. I think I would be impressed. And Giannis, if you tell Giannis he can't do something, then he'll probably go and do it. But that to me would just be even like otherworldly to make that huge jump in averaging a triple double. So I think it's realistic, 7 or 8 assists for him. We saw a stretch, especially in April, when Dame was out with his calf injury and Giannis had the ball a little bit more. And there was a stretch where it included that Philly game where he just put up monstrous numbers, right? Points, rebounds, assists. And we saw what he's capable of doing as a playmaker. So to me, it's not like usage rate that intrigues me. It's not scoring that intrigues me with Giannis. It's what's he going to do as a playmaker. It's assists and turnovers. I think that I'll be looking at first, especially at the beginning of the year, to see how Giannis as the playmaker and creator and the point forward and kudos, by the way, to the first point forward and Marcus Johnson, by the way. He needs to get credit for being the first and coining that term too. But it'll be interesting to see Giannis as a point forward more this year and how that transpires.
Right. I think so. I think we're of the same mind that obviously, because last year was 6.5 assists. That was a career high. He's going to average a career high in assists this year. And again, talking with Jim Paschke about this same thing, he was mentioning how, with the turnovers, because Giannis has such a high dribble, of course, being like almost 7 feet tall, and where he's going to operate as a ball handler from the floor. Like we saw a fair bit of him at the elbow last year, and as a ball handler in like a short roll situation. I'm curious to see whether that's coming out a bit more, or if it stays in, because in those close quarters are where I think you worry as someone with a high dribble about their turnovers and, being able to control the ball among like a lot of arms and bodies down there. But the shooting I want to talk about too, because the mid-range shooting was so improved last year. Like he shot between 14 feet in the 3-point arc, 78th percentile was at 47% on good volume too. And some of his MVP years, he was actually kind of close to that number, but this was a career high. And in that kind of floater range, like between the restricted area and like not the 3-point line, the free throw line, that area, that's an area where he's kind of struggled in the past. It's gotten better. And I think a lot of people, maybe when they talk about him, I hate to even say this, but like, there are the detractors who say he doesn't have a bag or whatever, which is just ludicrous. But he doesn't always have, I would say, that kind of like that baby hook or something, like a go-to in there. And I don't know how much you've been at practice so far this year, but like just over the years, how much do you see him working on that kind of in-between shot, like those push shots?
Well, he hasn't been to practice yet this year. So
right, of course. Yeah, I forgot about that.
He's going to join the team in Miami.
That's right. I totally forgot. He's on his way there.
Yeah. He's under the weather right now with COVID, but he'll be back soon. He works on that stuff all the time, and watching him at practices and shoot arounds. And, sometimes even if you watch him warm up before games, he's working on a different shot repertoire, right? And a shot profile that some of those shots, he focuses mostly on the ones he knows he's going to take in the game, but he also stretches himself out a little bit, and is starting to work on things like, some runners, some jump hooks, and that sort of thing that you don't necessarily see him take. One of his patented shots, I think, is when he's baseline and he turns, right, and he spins baseline and takes that 15-foot jumper. That is something that he's developed, right? And that is something that he's had to work on. The mid-range, dribbling up to the elbow, or turning and facing, and a defender just gives him a sliver of space, and then he can pull up and hit that jumper. That is something that is all developed within the last few years with Giannis. And I honestly think this too. I think it's a confidence factor. And as otherworldly and superhuman as Giannis is, he's like a lot of us, where you might doubt yourself. You might think twice to do something new, and to try something new that everybody's watching you now. It's different to do it in practice and shoot around and your pregame warm up. But when it matters and when people are watching, you got to have a different sort of confidence. But we all have seen Giannis's game develop, right? From the the criticized, the run and dunk man, to he's very, he's the furthest from a run and dunk guy, right? Like, he has built his shot profile beyond that as well. But he's had to work at it. So I'm excited to see what we're talking about like in 5 years with Giannis, because I think, we could go back and play this tape. I think, Van, in about, 2 to 3 years. And we'll be able to kind of laugh at the fact that we're talking about Giannis doesn't have that, that the hook shot or the runner, or, and because I really feel like that is next on his list. As well as 3-point, I've talked about 3-pointers as well as 3-pointers. I do think that he wants to develop that, not become a 3-point specialist. Let's not get carried away there. But like I said, if he can hit 1 3-pointer a game, and go 1 for 3, that's 33% from 3. That's not too bad for a big man like himself.
Even if he averages 30%, like, you think about what his numbers are in like that mid range I'm talking about. Those are worth 2 points. And if you're shooting, Eric was talking about this on his recent appearance with Marcus and Chris. It's like, you just have to make fewer shots when you back it out. Several more feet.
Right.
But you're getting an extra point for it. You will average the same amount of points. You will contribute the same amount of points on a lower percentage. Of course, that's just how math works. Than if you're taking shots inside the arc. So I do think maybe, we see him back it up a little bit more this year.
Well, and I think
he's got. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I was going to say, I think another part of that is just more so that it can create a threat where maybe he can get a pump fake off and a defender is closing down on him, because they'll have to respect it. They'll have to at least think he's going to shoot it instead of completely backing off. Maybe they close out a little bit more, and that gives Giannis enough of a step for him to get to the hoop to be closer, whether it's to get a layup, a dunk, or kick it out to another player. So I think just having that credible threat as well just expands not only his offense, but the Bucks offense. And I think that was the thing that impressed me most last year with his efficiency, is he was doing that while increasing the amount of mid-range jumpers as well. So then it's like, okay, so now he has that level, and kind of like what you're saying, what can he do in that restricted area? Maybe he does get 1 or 2 threes a game that then forces other teams to not completely just sit in the paint. And I always say, give him the Ben Simmons treatment, where it's like, okay, he's not going to shoot that, where now you can let him shoot it, and it might only be 30% of the time, but that's still enough that can be a big difference between the Bucks leading by 1 and leading by 4, being down 1 and up 2, or it's a tie game. Like, it's enough of a threat that if Giannis decides to do it, and especially when he's feeling confident, where it could open up things for him and Milwaukee's offense.
And he has some of the best talent developers in the world. He's got he's locked down, he's got a great assistant coaching staff. And in addition to that, guys here in the United States that are working with him. He's pulled, some coaches from Greece to work with him as well. So, Giannis is going to continue. This is one thing that we know about Giannis is that he is going to continue to get better and he is going to continue to improve. And that's great for the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's really scary for the rest of the league.
Yeah, I want to see people start to like step up. Defenders start to step up when he's pulling up in that 15-foot range. Just so it adds that pump fake ability. And I think we were starting to see that towards the end of last year where defenders were like, oh wait, we have to close out on him a little bit more on these now. So I don't know, maybe the rest of the league will get the memo. And I think that's just great for the Bucks. It's great for him because it's just going to open up those driving lanes.
Yeah. And, one of the things in terms of Giannis's ability for the leap is also trying to figure out who else on the roster is going to take that next leap. I feel like AJ Green was the one that made that leap last year or even the year before, where it went from, okay, this is a guy that could do something to he is now firmly in the rotation. We've seen it with Ryan Rollins. We've seen it with even Kevin Porter Jr. So is there a player that you think is going to take that leap, whether it is from kind of like on the fringes to a rotation player or a rotation player to locked on, has to play every night, no ifs, ands, or buts?
Can I say AJ Green again?
Yes, you can.
Okay. That'd be
Other
my
people
answer.
have too. I think it's a great answer too.
Yeah. But I'm going to need this. I'm going to need my guy AJ to become a little more popular because when I was Googling AJ Green, just kind of dive into a hole yesterday.
The
AJ Green, that pops up is the Bengals NFL, and I'm like, he retired in 2023, something like that, or
a while.
Many years ago. And so come on now, like we need our AJ to be popping up in those Google, it's the first thing.
Like, I really am trying my best.
We got to work on this SEO.
We need to start Googling AJ Green, Milwaukee Bucks a little bit more, Bucks fans.
We're doing our part over here. We have all our little tricks behind the scenes to get stuff towards the top of the Google.
Right.
But we're still trying to beat the NFL stuff, I guess.
Yeah. AJ is one of my favorite players. I love his story. He's done everything the right way. I mean, if you talked to people within the Bucks organization, he's one of the first people that they put on their list for everything. Hardest worker, easiest to deal with, best teammate. I mean, all of the positives and the superlatives that go in those categories, they talk about AJ Green being that. And so he's just an easy guy to root for when you've got a hard worker, a good guy who is doing things the right way, and to watch his stats go up year to year to year, right? And then go from a two-way player to an NBA standard contract to this year, perhaps locking him down for several years after this season. It's just an incredible story. Doc and the Bucks have talked about shooting more threes this year. And just in terms of attempts. So I just automatically think about him and how much he's going to benefit with that kind of system. AJ already had last year alone where you talk about the jump that he made, Kyle, but he had career highs in minutes played and points per game and 3-point field goal percentage. So I expect all of those numbers even to go up. And the biggest number that I'm going to be curious about in watching AJ is not his 3-point field goal percentage. It's not his scoring. It's his minutes played. He averaged about 22 minutes last year. Who does he take those minutes from, right? Like, I don't think if everybody stays healthy, I think AJ's coming off the bench. I think, like I said, we talked about earlier, you can make an argument for like 7 to 8 guys, right, for the Bucks who could be starters. But I think AJ is going to be that bench guy. So where does he take those minutes? Taurean Prince had averaged about 27 minutes last year. Kyle Kuzma had averaged about 31 minutes last year. Are those guys that, AJ, if they go a little bit smaller, can AJ take some of those minutes? It just, however Doc and the coaching staff is going to orchestrate that, AJ is going to put up numbers. I will guarantee you that his work ethic, the way he plays, the way that the Bucks want to shoot more threes, that all is consistent to a recipe for success for AJ Green. It's just a matter of how many minutes can he do it in here this year.
3-point attempts are like and minutes, I guess, for him, because the more he plays, the more shots he'll get up. I think for the team in general, 3-point attempts are I think the biggest things here, because they were the best by conversion, the best team in the league last year, 38.7%. But you look at per game, 36.6 attempts per game. League average one higher at 37.6. And so obviously, like, they're good, and like they make these shots. Take some more of them. It's going to help their offense. I think that's the best thing they can do to help their offense right now, because they are losing a lot of points with Damian Lillard leaving. But in terms of AJ specifically, because I think, like I would love to. I mean, we'd love to see him like up his career highs again, like especially in terms of scoring, because that's what the Bucks will need. But he took 5 threes per game last year. I want to hear this from both of you, especially Kyle, because he's AJ Green fanboy number one. What
are you really?
He is a big AJ Green fan.
Out of everyone on the staff, I was number one. I planted that flag early, and I bought the stock.
He bought the stock. He bought the stock right away, and it's just like it's maturing in it's collecting tons of interest.
Even got a jersey now, really well. So
he's doing really well over there, Kyle. So, but what
does
do you
it say? Green on the
see?
back, or does it say Dairy Bird on the back?
It says green. My fiance, I don't think she caught on to the Dairy Bird at that point yet. So
gotcha. Okay.
So what do you, both of you, what would you like to see him? How many threes would you like to see him take per game? Because I want to see a lot, but like, how much would be enough?
I'd say 7 or 8 minimum.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. 7 or 8. And I think that's a realistic bump up from the 5 from last year. Everyone, every shooter on this team is going to have to, in my opinion, average 1 to 2 more attempts to get to the point that I think Doc and this organization wants to get to. And Van, you had talked about the league average in terms of attempts per game for teams, and let's think about it. Like for the Bucks to get top 5, top 3, they only have to average a few more attempts. Like, it's not like 15 more attempts and then they're there. So a guy for like AJ, who's going to be one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter on the team, I think 2 to 3 more attempts is pretty realistic from last year.
He only took over 9 free throw or 3-point attempts 4 times last year. I would like that to be like maybe 5 times as high this year. I want like Malik Beasley level volume out of him. I know Kyle likes that too. I see his
possible.
Again.
It's definitely possible. The thing
his
I'm
eyes
kind of
got
wondering
there.
is, with the departure of Damian Lillard, that is going to be more opportunities for that to kind of be distributed. So likely, Sam, like everyone doing 1 to 2 more. I think you're going to get that with Dame's departure, with Brook Lopez's departure, even like those 3-point attempts are going to have to go somewhere else. So that is where, AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., Torian Prince, if he plays, even Bobby Portis, I feel like could be someone that could benefit from adding that 1 to 2 as well. And that's not assuming someone like Ryan Rollins maybe takes that jump, or Cole Anthony, if he plays, takes that jump.
I look at the distribution of attempts last year, and Lillard 9 a game, Gary Trent just under 6, Green 5, Brook Lopez just under 5. Kyle Kuzma 4.6, 4.2 for Prince, who's one of the best shooters in the league last year. I kind of like where like Trent, and I mean, I guess we can probably replace Lopez's maybe with Turner quite like seamlessly, but yeah, some of those 9 attempts that Dame was getting, and obviously we want more than, that's a quarter of the 36 that they were getting per game. I'd like to see most of those go to AJ Green. I just think that's what's going to make him
good choice.
that's what's going to make him pop in those Google hits, above the.
That's
the
right.
Bengals guy.
Google my man AJ Green and not the
Google
Bengals
him.
player, please.
That's the what Shaq says, right? It's Google me,
You
Chuck.
know how far down I had to scroll down to just
Oh,
even
no.
see a picture of our AJ
Yeah.
Green? I was like, man, come on.
I think my
We've
Google
been dealing
knows
with it
which
for
one I'm
years.
talking about at this point because if I type it, it automatically pops up with AJ Green of the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that's just my Google realizing I know what you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, it
But-
doesn't even have its Instagram up here. Come on.
Well, we'll get to the Instagram.
We'll
First,
work
we just
on
got to
it.
get his face. We got to get his face
Yeah.
there first. Instagram.
Yeah,
can
his
be
face
second.
is. I see Andy Dalton's face before I see his face
Okay,
on this page.
that's definitely an issue.
That's not good. Not good.
But we've kind of touched on it with some, like with AJ Green. I know earlier we had talked about, Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr. But Lisa, in your opinion, out of these four, between KPJ, GTJ, AJ Green, and Kyle Kuzma, who, in your opinion, is the most important for the Milwaukee Bucks' success next season?
Oh, Kuz, because he doesn't have any of the abbreviations of their names. Like I'm looking at your banner there, KPJ, GTJ, AJG.
I didn't want to overload the
AJ
banner.
Green as an AJG, so that's unique. Kyle Kuzma is a $20 million player, right? And he's got to produce with the kind of salary that he has, and giving one of the most beloved, still will always be, and Chris Middleton, one of the most beloved Milwaukee Bucks players. He's 30 years old, so he's one of the older guys on the team. He's played in the NBA Finals with the Lakers. He has some playoff experience. He needs to be a leader, to me, example wise for this crew. And let's be honest too, he's got to be hungry after the postseason he had, right? And the infamous all zeros across the stat line game.
The cardio workout, as they call it.
The Snell game. The Tony Snell game. That was before your time, I know, Lisa. But
well, it was before
Tony
my
Snell.
time, but yeah. But it's I can relate. So so he's
too.
at the
I
top
can
of that
relate.
list.
As a player, yeah.
He's at the top of that list. And then did you want me to put in order who falls in?
You can
or
definitely
just
put it in
wanted to
order,
know?
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I just think AJ, we've talked about him already. I think that he's so important for just the new focus of 3-point shooting. I think he's just continuously trending upward. Be like Kyle and buy stock in AJ Green if you can. Kevin Porter Jr., I think is, you got to have a strong point guard presence when Giannis doesn't have the ball. You got to have a guy you can rely on. And complement Giannis as a ball handler. And then Gary Trent Jr., when he's a starter, I think he can continue to put up starter numbers. We saw a couple of 30-point games in the playoffs. That 37-point game when he was inserted into the starting lineup in Game 3 was fantastic. So he's capable of having a big night. There's let's not forget the reason why everyone was excited when, we got him for cheap. Let's be honest, right? Last year. And so I would go that. I would go Kuzma, AJ Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and then Gary Trent Jr. in that order in terms of my opinion and level of importance this year.
Yeah. That's a unique one, I think, among the answers we've had to this question. But we haven't talked about Porter and Trent too much. I'm curious what you think, because a lot of people see those two based on what Kevin Porter Jr. did. Let's see, now 4 years ago, dropping 50 on the Bucks one game and just having that kind of like that capability to fill it up. And then what Trent did in the postseason last year, a lot of people see them as like, okay, maybe one of these guys is the second leading scorer. But of those two, if you had to pick, like, all right, the Bucks are, let's just say the Bucks are at the All-Star break, like they're crushing it. Like they're one of the best teams in the East, and there's got to be a second All-Star from the team. Like it's to the point where it's like this team can't just have one All-Star. Mm-hmm. Of those two, who do you think it would be? Like who you think if the Bucks are playing well, who you think would be their second All-Star?
Just of those two.
I mean, yeah, I guess it could be like Miles Turner, but
that's who I would immediately think.
Right,
is
sure.
Miles, but
Turner.
But
yeah.
I think a lot of people, I want to highlight those two because a lot of people think that those two have the most offensive upside on the team. Like one of those two could average 20 points a game, for example.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a better question. Western. Like, which of those two do you think could be like a 20-point a game guy for this team?
Wow.
If you had to pick one.
If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Gary Trent Jr. You know, I think KPJ is going to have the ball in his hands. You know, in the era we do see scoring point guards now, you know, and that's what you got to do. You got to score and distribute if you're a point guard in this league. I just think Kevin Porter Jr. can have explosive moments, but I just look at Gary Trent Jr. having more consistently explosive games. I just think he could be the recipient on a lot of Giannis passes as a creator, you know? And so I just see his 3-point attempts really shooting up. We're talking about where are these 3-point attempts going to go? And I just think Gary Trent Jr. is going to be one of the beneficiaries of this new style of play. So I haven't even looked. Do you have his numbers out there? Like what is his career high for his career and what he's averaging?
I off the top of my head, I want to say he got up towards 18. Yeah.
I wanted to say 18 or 19.
In Toronto, 18.3, 21, 22. His first full season with the Raptors. And then the next year he was around 17. So yeah, 17, 18, we're talking.
Now I'll have this, and I'm not trying to give you a political answer, but like, I mean, Kevin Porter Jr., when he's on, he plays out of this world, you know, and just, I remember the first few moments after the trade happened, and you know, the Minnesota comeback comes to mind, where he was a leading charge. And one of the what I think of last year's season, one of the iconic plays is in the comeback, and you know, a turnover is forced, and Kevin Porter Jr. tosses it to Giannis, who dunks it, and then he just hangs on the rim like this, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, those kind of plays and those kind of moments are generated by Kevin Porter Jr. And here's the deal. KPJ is playing with a chip on his shoulder here this year. And, you know, you mentioned it's been, you know, 3 to 4 years since he's done anything totally memorable in the league. He's been out of the league completely for a year. A lot of people have doubts on him. You mentioned the 50-point scoring game, so we know that he's capable of explosion. He put up big numbers, decent numbers in Houston. And so that's just interesting. I'd have to give it more thought. I don't have a great answer with that, because I could one day go with KPJ and one day go with Gary Trent Jr., because I think they both are totally capable of having that kind of season.
Yeah, they both have that upside.
Was leaning towards KPJ because I feel like when it gets to closing time, he seems to relish and he really wants to make those plays. And that's not to say Gary Trent Jr. doesn't, but when you have the ball in your hand, it felt as though there are times where Kevin Porter Jr. would just get a screen, get to the mid-range, and then either take the shot or he was able to get to the rim. And I feel like that's where it's going to help him. And I think that's why he can get to that 20, because the scoring capability is there. And it's not like a microwave score, but he does feel as though someone that once he gets rolling, there really is no stopping him. So, and I think with that, plus him having the ball in his hands more often, I think he would be the one out of the two. And again, I could change my answer in 2 months, but I think right now I would lean towards him, just because especially in those closing moments of the game, he does want the ball. He does want to take those shots and have that moment. If Giannis is able to get, you know, if Giannis is not an option and Miles Turner isn't an option, I can see Kevin Porter Jr. saying, okay, I'll take it myself.
Low key, a pretty exciting backcourt, I would say, actually. Like, it's not one that I think a lot of national people especially are looking at and being like, oh, that intrigues me. But I mean, it intrigues me. And I also think a lot of people I've heard national people say like, well, Cole Anthony's going to be starting for this team, Gary Harris or something. It's like, I don't know about that. Did you see what happened at the end of last year? Like, did you see? Yeah, I know we kind of forgot about Kevin Porter Jr. and maybe all you saw of him was like the first 2 or 3 games he played in the postseason, his first 2 or 3 postseason games ever, which, yeah, not much to look at. But then, like, as that series went on, he got it together. And yeah, this is absolutely a prove it year for him. I mean, he's contractually, he got a 1+1, like with the Bucks, part of their mid-level exception, their room exception, and he'll be able to opt out again and enter free agency next year. And at that point, the Bucks would be able to give him a nice deal. Kind of like basically what they've been doing with Bobby Portis and what they did with him a number of years ago, and maybe what they'll be doing with Gary Trent. I could say the same stuff for him. I mean, these are both guys who can become free agents, so they're like contract years for them. They've got big roles, and the Bucks would be in pole position to re-sign them next summer. But yeah, I think there's a lot for both of them to prove, but probably more so for KPJ.
Oh, for sure. Now, if you're, that's a firm answer. I was waffling a little bit, fully admit that, because I still can't decide on that, because I can see capability of both. But yeah, in terms of things to prove, KPJ is right up there.
We'll revisit this. We'll revisit. Okay. We'll see midway through the year who's having the bigger season.
Okay, sounds good.
Hopefully both of them have a great season, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's different skill sets, different positions, and but it's a good question. It's a good question, Van.
Yeah. I know we talked about the Bucks rebounding as something that should be a strength for theirs. And along with the big triumphant, I've already butchered
triumvirate.
But triumvirate. It's
words are hard sometimes. Words are hard.
But so we talked about their strengths. Are there any other strengths that you think Milwaukee has? And also on the opposite end, is there an area where maybe Milwaukee can get exposed? Last year it was primarily transition defense, I would say, was the biggest one. But is there anything, even with the changes both to the roster, to what Doc wants to do, that still kind of gives you this like nagging, not great feeling in the back of your mind?
Yeah, always, right? With fans, right? Like it's like, you never have the perfect team. And I think you feel that way more so when you have youth and unpredictability. As much as being faster and younger can be a strength, it can also be a weakness. Let's be honest about that, right? Like we just don't know what some of these guys are going to do in high pressure kind of situations. And, Bucks fans, we're blessed in the comfort zone of that championship core with Giannis and Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. And, where they're all older now, you knew what they were going to bring night in and night out. And in a different kind of situation or a certain matchup with this night, like you knew it was a mismatch with Drew, or you knew it was a mismatch with Chris Middleton or Brook Lopez. And there's so many question marks on this team. We talked about Kevin Porter Jr. being a guy who's got to prove himself. He's a younger point guard. He's a faster point guard. But the trust level of what he can do night in and night out consistently, right, is something that I think he's going to have to prove, just as a player example. So the youth, the unpredictability, I hope is not a weakness. I hope it's a strength, but I think it's a huge question mark right now here for this team. Defensive transition is still going to be a question in my mind. If, how aggressive the Bucks are planning on being, and teams I think are going to still early in the season try that on them and see like how much improved they are with this new roster and some of these new pieces. I think it'll be interesting to see how teams try to attack that and to see the Bucks' response on that. A strength, I think we've talked about it before, is their depth, especially in the front court and especially at the perimeter spots. I mean, at the point guard spot, you've got three guys who are playing with a chip on their shoulder. We've talked about Kevin Porter Jr., Cole Anthony has been playing well here in the preseason. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's dealt with injuries. And then you've got Ryan Rollins, who I know was drafted in that way is different than the AJ Green story, but he did fall into two-way player land and is now in, an NBA standard contract. And so I'm also a big Ryan Rollins fan. And I think he's a really, really good two-way player. I hope he gets some minutes there at that spot. But let's just look at that point guard spot. There's three guys who you could hand the reins over to here this year. The shooting guard spot with Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green, and you got the power forward / shooting forward spot, Taurean Prince and Gary Harris, who we haven't talked about. Gary Harris, Kyle Kuzma. They're like when Doc says that guys are walking into practice and they see three deep with these different positions. that is a blessing. A lot of teams would love to have that kind of depth and choices of guys to play here this year. So I look at depth as a strength. The youth unpredictability, I hope it's not a weakness. I hope that's also a strength.
Real quick, I've asked this of a few people who've come on this offseason, and
Yeah.
I've heard answers either way. Compare, especially defensively, I'm speaking, Ryan Rollins, like right now, with what we saw from Javon Carter a few years ago in terms of that perimeter defense. Like, how do you think they compare? I've heard some say he's not quite there yet. I've heard some say he's better.
I don't think Ryan takes as many chances as Javon does defensively. So I think they're two different kind of defensive players in that way. I think Javon is more he can break up more plays individually than Ryan can. I think Ryan is a great system defensive player. Like he's a sponge too, because I've seen it, him like digesting everything that the coaches are telling him. And the coaches spend a lot of time with him at practices and shoot arounds. Like they have a lot of faith in him. And so they spend a lot of time in trying to coach him up. But he's a good I hope you understand what I'm saying. Ryan Rollins is a good one-on-one defender, but I think he excels in the right defensive system too. Whereas
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, whereas Javon, you could just be like, Hey man, like D him up on the playground, and he's going to be a disruptor.
Go 94 feet.
Yeah, exactly. But Ryan Rollins still has a deep role, though, yeah. I would love to see him become more of a disruptor and defensively. And maybe that's the next step for him here this year. You don't know, but I want to see some minutes. That's going to be hard, because they bring in Cole Anthony, who's got experience and has a Carolina pedigree when healthy and all that. But like I would love to see Ryan getting some minutes here this year, because I'm a big Ryan Rollins believer.
Yeah, same. He's someone who I really was taken with, like, I would say, dating back to Summer League in 2024. And then just talking to him, getting to know him a bit last year. He's an easy guy to root for. And yeah. I look at him and I see like I don't mean to necessarily compare him with Carter or even like, Drew Holiday, but I think like his function for this team would be similar to them, where it's like he's their perimeter stopper. If they need someone, if Jalen Brunson is killing them again, as has happened over the last few years, like that's the guy I want to see on Brunson.
Right. Yeah, totally. But you need a strong guard, right? A strong, quick guard on a guy like that. So I'm sure Ryan would be up for the challenge in that kind of matchup.
What I was to say, Ryan was also doing all this last year with not a 100% healthy shoulder,
separated shoulder.
I think,
that's a great point.
Very impressive that he was still able to do all that, probably through a very high pain threshold, which I give him props for. So I think him being healthy as well would be a huge difference for what he's able to bring for Milwaukee.
And he never complained about it when I would ask him, like, "Hey, how's the shoulder doing?" He's like, "No problem, maintaining."
Because
he got surgically repaired in, I think it was June.
May. Yeah. That's a great point. We haven't even seen a healthy, confident Ryan Rollins yet, so we'll get that here this year. But I just really admired him because he wanted to play, and Kyle, to your point, like playing in probably like unbelievable pain, but he knew that last year was going to be such an important year for his career. Like there was a need with Dame being out that like we needed someone to start at the point guard spot. We needed those minutes filled, and he saw an opportunity there. And whether he was a 40% Ryan, I don't know what the percentage was, but just kudos to him for wanting to get out there when he clearly wasn't even close to 100%.
Yeah. And we always joke about this part where you need a player like Ryan Rollins because it's a Tuesday in February. We always joke, it's over in Charlotte, or back when Orlando wasn't good. It was like in Orlando, and you're just sitting there having to
Washington, Orleans,
Sacramento, back when Sacramento
Memphis,
was struggling. Yeah. But in terms for you, Lisa, especially because you're gonna have to call these games, what are you hoping to see from the Bucks during the regular season? I think for all of us, it's kind of like 82 games is a lot. Some games are going to be like, all right, I'm going to do it. But you just
Tuesday night.
have that bare minimum of what do you expect and what do you hope to see from the Bucks this regular season, whether it's just effort or certain like style of play. I know you kind of mentioned more of that full court.
Yep. Just seeding wise and record wise, I would love obviously to see them in the top 4. It's something that didn't happen last year. I think that just really puts you under the gun a little bit when the playoffs come. But to have that home court advantage is so important. And I'll say this, there was actually an NBA assistant who told me that when the Miles Turner transaction happened, that he thought the Bucks were the top team in the East, which was really interesting to me. And then I started, thinking about other teams, and New York is coming down with injuries again, right? Just in the last few days even. So I'm thinking who in my opinion, like I would put Milwaukee and Orlando and Cleveland. If you have to pick maybe front runners in the East right now, I would pick those 3 teams, in my opinion, as being kind of a front runner. And so we don't know how good Atlanta is going to be. It surprised me how quickly the Celtics kind of disbanded some of their stuff with the Tatum injury, and the Pacers obviously aren't going to be the team that they are with the injury to Halliburton, and now, Turner not there anymore. So that's where I would start, is just to stay as, obviously health is always the most important thing, to stay as healthy as they can getting into the playoffs. But, at bare minimum, finishing top 4 and, ideally higher than that. We've seen them, like the actual seed 1, 2, or 3. We've seen the Bucks not go far as a number 1 seed, being eliminated in that first round by Miami. We've seen the Bucks as a number 3 seed win the championship. So as long as you can get in that threshold, I think you're in pretty good territory. And as long as you can stay healthy. So those are the kind of things that I would like to see, just team record wise. In terms of style of play, I love the direction that they're going. I think it's lockstep with the way the league is going, and shooting more threes and playing more up tempo and getting younger and faster and all that, because they struggled against those teams last year. So I would love to see all the categories that correspond with stuff like that. We've talked about it, fast break points and points off turnovers. It'd be great to see the Bucks in like top 3, maybe top 5 in the league in those kind of categories. I think that would tell a lot for their style of play. So I don't know. I guess we could start there.
I think that's a good starting point. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the East looks like, because you could tell me Milwaukee finishes first or second and be like, okay, yeah, some things could break their way. They get hot. It all works. And then I also see the opposite. I was like, yeah, they're in the play game. I'm like, yeah, I guess. And so I feel like there's like that whole variance, but I do think aiming for that top 4 and getting that home court advantage is going to be huge for them, just especially with the younger team. And you have that home court advantage. You don't have to travel, as we saw with Indiana. Like, that is a hostile place to play. And if you go to a New York, you go to even Cleveland, like those fans are going to make a difference. And I think Milwaukee would be the same way.
Yeah, totally. It'll be I mean, the East is interesting. The West again there's a lot of depth in the West and a lot of unpredictability. Obviously, OKC I think is everyone's favorite right now, but I would pose that question to you guys. Like, who is your favorite who's your front runner in the East? I think there's a lot of different answers from a lot of different people.
To me, it's maybe, I don't know if they would finish with the top record in the East this year. In fact, I don't think they will, but Cleveland, I think I see a little bit of the Bucks of 5 years ago in Cleveland, where they just haven't broken through in the postseason yet.
So who's your top 4, Van? Who's your top 4 in the East?
I would go, I think in order of finish, I'm going to go, this is why I've been saying Detroit. I'm sorry, not Detroit. New York, Cleveland, Orlando, and either 4 or 5 I'm thinking is the Bucks or maybe Detroit, just because I think Detroit is going to take a little bit. I could even see Detroit finishing with the 3rd seed. So
interesting.
Okay, Kyle.
I would say, in no particular order, I think Cleveland and New York because even with the injuries, I still think New York, in terms of like that top end quality with Brunson, with Bridges, with Karl Anthony Towns, that's still a very formidable team. It'll be interesting to see how the coaching change is going to change things. Maybe they come back more fresh and, you know, don't have the Thibodeau miles on them. I am not ready to write off Boston. Like, yes, they did take out a good chunk of that core, but you still have Jaylen Brown, who's a very talented player. You still have Derek White, who's a very talented player. You have Pritchard. There's still a quality team in Boston. It'll be interesting to see how they adjust to it, but I think there's just too much. I don't want to write off Boston just yet, just because they still have a top end guy in Jaylen Brown. And as long as you have someone like that in the regular season, that can get you through. And I think Boston's depth might be better than we anticipate. So I guess I would say Cleveland, New York, Boston, and then I feel like it's like this trio of teams actually 4 teams between Atlanta, Milwaukee, Orlando, and Detroit.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot of bunching up there, I think too. But what about in the postseason? I mean, specifically for the Bucks, you know, to you first, Lisa, like where do you see them getting to? What stage of the playoffs? What round? How far do they go? Oh,
they're going all the way. I mean, there's every year. That's my answer.
Every year, sure.
Every year. You know, obviously, it's when you have Giannis, who's a generational player, you always have a chance, in my opinion, no matter who you surround yourself with. I mean, we've seen him single-handedly take over games and almost single-handedly win series by himself. You know, but it all comes down to health. For me, and even in that championship year, I mean, we know that it's, you know, ad nauseum, the Bucks have not been healthy in the last few playoffs, and so that to me, first and foremost, is, you know, it's got to be there, and if it's there, I mean, who knows? Like you think about the roster and the boxes that are checked. Is it a championship roster? I think you could put it in a conversation in that way. Yeah. You know, I mean, we got to see all these pieces here first come together, right? There's so many new pieces, and being, you know, younger, faster, and all that stuff. You got to see how it matches up with everybody else. But I certainly could see them going deep into the Eastern Conference playoffs if healthy, and then OKC is a huge challenge. You know, if they ever got to the NBA Finals, talk about younger, faster, and championship pedigree now with the OKC team. That you know, when they came to Five Serve Forum, it was daunting to watch them and how good they were on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. And there's a reason why their offensive rating numbers and defensive rating numbers are top 3 in the league all season of last year. And it's getting to a Western Conference opponent and beating a Western Conference opponent would be a challenge. But as we had just previously talked about, why not the Bucks here in the East? Why not the Bucks getting through the East? You know, I think they have the appropriate pieces. I think they're heading in the right direction of, you know, where the league has found success in terms of style of play, that if healthy, yeah, you know, I could see them. I can see them getting deep into the Eastern Conference playoffs and getting to the NBA Finals if all goes well.
I do think of the 2 deepest runs that the Bucks have had, both 2019 and when they won the title, they were healthy. Because then if you think about 2020, Giannis is hurts his ankle, COVID bubble, everything's weird. And then you have the Chris Middleton injury, then the Giannis injury again, and then Giannis and Dame, and then last year Dame. So I do think we've seen when this Bucks team is healthy, they can make a run in the postseason. So I agree. I think health's going to be the biggest factor for how far we've seen. Like, teams can get decimated with injuries come playoff time, and it gets pretty rough. If you can, it's pretty much whoever's last team standing in terms of health.
Yeah, and not lose. And when we're talking about health, not lose your top 2 players in terms of health, or top 3 players. Like, I mean, you had mentioned. I mean, even the championship year, Giannis wasn't healthy.
Or
And
Dante DiVincenzo, he got hurt in round
Dante
1.
DiVincenzo, right? And so as a start, as a top 6, top 5 guy, right? Like, so these are significant people who are getting hurt, but just with the last few years, the last 3 years, you lose your best player 2 of the 3, and your 1A player, right? And Damian Lillard, last year. Like, you show me when you lose your top 2 players in the playoffs, like, you show me how well a team's going to do in the playoffs. And it's just aggravating to me that, again, that's not the national narrative. Is the Bucks have lost in the first round of the playoffs, the last 3 years.
It's irrespective of their health. Yeah.
Right. And the conversation like ends there. Like, the comment, the sentence ends there. Well, no. There's got to be a comma to that sentence because Giannis was hurt, or Damian Lillard was hurt, like,
or both.
Or both were hurt. Yeah, like 2 years ago, both were hurt at points in that Pacers series. Like, so I don't want people rolling their eyes like, oh man, they're saying, well, you got to stay healthy, because it's true. Boston was dead in the water when Jason Tatum went down. And the Pacers
So was Indiana
going to win
in
Game
7
when Halliburton went down. So I don't want to hear it. Like, like, health is a very huge issue, and I don't want to see our top 2 players go down this year in the playoffs. I don't want to see anyone go down.
We
but
deserve it.
Keeping those guys healthy, yes, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Health is everyone get healthy, whether it is on the court, off the court. But obviously, Lisa, we thank you very much for your time. Besides, the broadcast, where can people find you, and where can people, follow your work?
Yeah, social media, just my first and last name, real easy, Lisa Byington. So you can find me on most of the social media platforms. And of course, you can find me on FanDuel Sports Network.
Awesome. Well, thank you again very much, Lisa. And we will continue our season preview series in the next couple of weeks. And then we have fun stuff. We have preseason basketball right around the corner.
No, let's go.
We'll be here.
I feel like I'm going to be like, yes, Bucks basketball's back. And then it's going to be preseason. Like, okay. I got to mentally prepare myself for 80-something games.
Maybe 83 like last year.
Right. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us.
Gladly take another NBA Cup championship, so that'd be fun.
They're great. Cool. Well, thanks again, Lisa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Make sure to catch us on brewhoop.com. We will have the game previews, recaps, more content coming down the pipeline. So make sure to go to brewhoop.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this with friends on whatever podcast app you prefer, and watch on YouTube.